So, Lord, we just say thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for bringing us here. Thank you because you're a good God. And we just say, Father, have your way here today in Jesus' name. Amen. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the UK Self-Sponsored Global Talent. We have our guest speaker here, Tobi. Thank you so much, Tobi, for agreeing to do this for us. I will just introduce our speaker and then hand it over to her immediately. I want to also encourage us to try to put in our questions in the chat. If we have any comments, if she says anything that resonates with us, kindly do put a comment just to encourage our speaker. Let me go on to introduce her. Tobi Eyinade is a communications professional and book entrepreneur. She is the co-founder of Roving Heights, a leading bookstore chain in Nigeria. Yes, you heard that correctly. She's the co-founder of Roving Heights. Thank you for all the good jobs you do on Roving Heights. I saw one of your posts on Instagram yesterday about someone trying to see how much they spent on books. It was so hilarious. Well done. Yeah, co-founder of Roving Heights, a leading bookstore chain in Nigeria with outlets in 2 major cities and a vibrant online community across multiple social media platforms. Tobi wears many hats, which allows her the opportunity to serve across the publishing value chain. She's also the founder of the Book Lady NG, a boutique book PR and marketing agency that delivers results-driven publicity and marketing campaigns for authors in Nigeria and in the UK. She shares her passion for African literature through the Worth Reading podcast and is the convener of the Basque Book Club, a UK-based book club that runs in partnership with Surrey Libraries to celebrate and spotlight books written by authors of African descent. Tobi is a 2021 recipient of the UK Global Talent Visa. Yeah, so we might be wondering, is Tobi the right person to be talking to us about this? She did it herself in 2021. If she did it herself, she can show us the way. She is a recipient of the UK Global Talent Visa through the Art and Culture route. She holds a first degree in English and an MBA from Obafemi Awolowo University and University of Surrey, respectively. With Jesus' joy in our hearts, with so much excitement, help me welcome Tobi Eyinade. Thank you, Tobi. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Hey, thank you so much, Ade, for that introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you for this together. I kind of appreciate that it's a labor of love. And I just really want to commend your very good heart for like yielding of yourself and allowing God, use you as a vessel to be a source of blessing to every single person that is a part of this small community. Yeah, I literally had a random conversation with Ade sometime, I think, was it in October or November? And it was during the course of that conversation that, so one way or the other, I ended up mentioning that I'm a recipient of the Global Talent Visa here in the UK. And she was quick to just mention that, I have a group of people that will totally benefit from what you just shared. And she asked if I was open to, coming on board. And I'm just so glad that I said yes, because I guess there's a tendency as people that when, we get something, especially when it's probably ages ago, it just feels like, oh yeah, it's no big deal, it's ordinary. But hey, I believe that it's an opportunity that is available for everyone to take. There's no better or platform to do that than to just use this and share with everyone. So thank you, Ade, for suggesting this. And I just hope that over the course of the next 40 to 50 minutes, we all leave with one or two things. We leave inspired to, try our hands on this option that is available for those who are exploring, a more stable stay within the UK. And I've got a few slides that I've put together for the purpose of this. So I'll see if I can quickly, right, so we can get right into the session. Just 1 minute to pull that up. Okay. Okay, let's hope that the gods of
Are you able to share? I made it host. Okay, great.
are. Can everyone see my screen all right?
Yes, I can see it, but it's not in slide mode yet.
About to change the slide mode.
Yeah,
Perfect.
great.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. All right. Like I mentioned, I'm sharing about the process or the journey of actually applying for a UK Global Talent Visa for myself. And part of the purpose behind it is just to see if there are people here that would solely or really, really benefit from it or would, be inspired to actually explore this option beyond, all the other various visa options that are available to immigrants. I don't have a key sense of, the audience type, but I'll try as much as possible to, simplify all the details that I'm sharing. And if you've got questions, please feel free to just drop them in the chat. Or when I'm done with the session, feel free to go on mute and I'll make sure to, answer and provide clarity. The next slide basically just sets the tone for what this session is going to look like, the flow. Just some basic house rules around, keeping microphone mute. So we just respect everyone's time. And then the length of this webinar should be hopefully 45 minutes. And then the last 15 minutes should be for a Q&A. And if you've got questions that are coming to you right while I'm speaking, feel free to drop them in the chat section. I'll take a look after now. All right, just to give us a sense of what we'll be touching on, I'll be delving into sharing more about what really is the UK Global Talent Visa. And I'll touch on the types, the routes, and the different endorsement bodies that are, allowed or approved to issue this particular visa type or this particular endorsement that then qualify you for the Global Talent Visa. And then some key things to know are about the visa. And I don't know if now is the right time to issue a caveat about the fact that though there are different types of global talent visa, I can only speak for the routes that I have experienced, which is the art and culture routes that I applied through. And then I'll try as much as possible to be very practical in terms of what the requirements are. I've got a few personal templates and framework that I feel will be useful for anyone here who is considering, other routes. I believe that while there are different endorsement body and various requirements, the framework that I used would definitely prove useful to anyone at all who is trying to apply through other routes. And then we'll take some questions. Right. A bit about myself. I guess Ade already did the bulk of that earlier on. Just I like to think I'm just that ordinary girl in one corner. I know there's nothing ordinary about me, but I've been in the communication space for about 9 years, just on the career front. And I'm currently focused on internal communications within the biopharma industry and just very passionate about using words and contents, campaigns to get people energized to achieve business objectives. And then on the entrepreneurial side, like they mentioned, Roving Nights is like one of my businesses. Also like a publisher, which is like a space that I just delved into more recently. Beyond that as well, I also do a bit of book PR. I am a book club convener as well as a podcaster. And I mean, all of the things that I do just goes to show how I try to, serve or provide value across the different levels within the publishing ecosystem in Nigeria and then Africa at large and even the UK. And so very quickly, I'll go on to my next slide, where I'll talk about the crux of the matter itself, the UK Global Talent Visa. A lot of people would ask the why behind this particular visa route, right? Oftentimes, there's always that question around, when things look too good to be true, right? You're almost wondering, like, so why is the UK government doing this? How long has this thing even been in existence for? as far as I'm aware of, I know that it's the name or the nomenclature for this visa type had changed over the years, but it's been around for a while. There's just been this silence culture around it, or maybe the word to use is there are so many gatekeepers, and there's a way that people who have benefited from it, maybe in 2015 or as far back as 2016, have been mum about it. They hardly want to talk about how they found themselves or jackpot. Because jackpot, as much as it is a phenomenon right now that is quite common, has been in existence for a while. People in every part of the world always migrate to search for a better life. And so the fact that you're doing that or you find yourself in that context right now is not out of place. So let's just settle that at the back of our mind, right? And I believe part of a strategy behind this particular visa routes is what the UK government is trying to do to attract some of the best and finest talents across the globe to the UK. I don't know if you've ever seen a lot of people that are making waves across different targeted sectors. When you Google their name, right, part of what you see is that you would see this hyphenation when it comes to their citizenship. You see maybe Canadian, Nigerian, some will even, depending on how much you love your home country, some will maybe Nigeria first and then British at the back, right? And I strongly believe that some of the people, or maybe when you look at the first generation of those people, where that actually stemmed from was probably through this particular visa route. And the idea is, I think for many nations, especially for developed and forward-thinking nations, when we see immigration laws being put into place, at the core of it is the need to actually attract and be able to pride a nation as boosting of some of the finest talents, the most brilliant people in the world. And so this is part of a strategy that I think the UK government is using to sustain that strategy. And so the visa type is simple. It's accessible to talented or promising individuals in different fields that I've just mentioned, in science, in engineering, medicine, across the humanities. And then we'll dive more into details where, all of these fields are grouped into different categories, right? And this visa option.
Oh my goodness, sorry about that.
Okay, I
You know
want
what
to.
I'll do? Let me mute everyone and then you should be able to unmute yourself. Do you want to try to unmute yourself?
Yes, I just did. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. All right, so this visa is granted based on endorsement by selected bodies that is guaranteed, and it is also a guaranteed rule to ILR. ILR stands for indefinite leave to remain or British citizenship within the space of 3 to 5 years. More details to come regarding this. I'll just go on to talk about the types of global talent visa within the UK that are accessible. It's also important to mention that there's a variant of this particular visa that is available also in the US. I think it's called EB1. There are different names for it. Just goes to show you how many developed countries or developed clients are more forward thinking about how they're trying to, attract the finest people to their geographical location because it has its many benefits across economic and, the best inventors in the world or innovators, they want to be able to say, oh, that person is British, that person is. I honestly wonder when maybe our Nigerian government will get to that point. But yeah, back to this. The different routes that are available for under the Global Talent Visa cut across different three. There are three routes, and they include the academia or research routes. The second one is the art and culture route, which was the one I received a visa through. And then there's the digital technology. Under the academia route, there are different endorsement bodies and there are different people that how do I put it now? Maybe the word to use is practitioners or individuals that fall under this different category. While I'm talking about this, I really hope that some of us take time to do a bit of reflection, to, search our heart or even go down memory lane to figure out if there are specific, even latent talents or basic small stuff that you've done over the years that you've hardly paid attention to. Those things might just be what can help you qualify or even be eligible for some of these routes. Under the academia or research routes, we've got people that perhaps got like a fellowship program within that reputable and highly recognized within the UK. You can actually, show evidence of some of those grants or fellowship programs that you are doing, and with that, get endorsed by maybe a Royal Society for Science and some of the endorsement bodies that are well known within the UK. When you go on the government website, which is like the key resource source material that I used to develop the slide, you get all of the lowdown and key information that you require. So on this slide, what I just want us to pay attention to is the different routes that are available under Global Talent Visa. There are three: academia or research, art and culture, digital technology. And under all these three routes, there are specific endorsement body. And those endorsement body are, for art and culture, the Art Council of England, there's the British Fashion Council, the Royal Institute of British Architects. So it goes to tell you that, people who are practitioners across these areas, combine art, dance, literature, music, theater, like you can see on the slide, are tied to specific endorsement bodies that are listed on the left. And then for digital technology, which is the one most people are quite familiar with, Technician is like the only endorsement body that is known to endorse people for the Global Talent Visa, especially those that are making contribution or can prove that they are innovators within the digital technology space across the globe. This visa type is not only available for Africans or Nigerians, the various nationalities, as long as you have proof and evidence. Like I mentioned, the UK is trying to, attract the best talent across different parts of the world. So now there are two types of Global Talent Visa. These categories are the Global Talent Visa for leaders and potential leaders. Another word for the leader one is the exceptional talent, and potential leader is exceptional promise. Like the word says, it shows that you're promising or you're upcoming or you have vast potential. And so this endorsement body are the ones that are going to be making a strong case based on the evidence and, some letters of recommendation that you put forward to say that you are an exceptional talent or leader, or you have promise based on quite a number of other factors that we'll dive into after now. The next slide is some of the key bits and information that you should know about this visa. I'll start off with the caveat. The caveat is that when you get a Global Talent Visa, there are few limitations, which in comparison with other visa type is like way insignificant. And here's what I mean. With a Global Talent Visa, you cannot apply for public funds. Public funds can cut across different things. I think there are some maybe grant opportunities, or if there's any opportunity at all that is being funded by public funds, if they dig deep, sometimes you probably have gotten halfway or midway into some of those processes before you find out that the behind this particular funding or application that I'm putting forward is the public fund. If they find out that you're on a Global Talent Visa, unfortunately, you would not be able to, but that hardly happens. And the second caveat is that you cannot work as a sports person. No, I'm not an athlete. I don't have ambition to become one. So this caveat, I will gladly go with this in comparison to like other visa limitations that I'm quite aware of. And then in terms of the fee, this has changed over the course of the last 2-3 years. When I applied in 2021, it was way less than this. I think it was about £600 or thereabout. But now altogether for stage 1 and stage 2, what do I mean by stage 1 and stage 2? Stage 1 is the endorsement process, which is the part that we'll be delving into here. And then stage 2 is what is the visa itself. but you can't get the visa without stage one, which is the endorsement process. So for that endorsement, there's a fee that you'll be charged by those endorsement bodies that are approved by the UK government, and that's 524 as of today, based on what I checked on the government websites. And the visa fee that the Home Office will typically charge is £192. Then, when you get this visa, thank God you do. The health surcharge affixed to that, the NHS charge that those of us that are based in the UK are quite familiar with. I think the charges has also changed over the last couple of years as well. Now it's £1,030 per year. And here's where it gets tricky. When you get a global talent visa, you're either getting it for 3 years if you're an exceptional talent, like a leader, or for if you are an exceptional promise, you're getting a visa for 5 years, after which you can then apply for your ILR. However, for these different visa types, you definitely need to pay your health surcharge. So you multiply the number of years that apply to the visa type you get to be able to know what your total health surcharge is. If you're a leader, that's like 1,035 times 3 years. I think that comes to over £3,000. And then if it's exceptional promise, that's times 5 years in that sense. And a lot of people would claim that this particular visa type is like cost intensive in comparison to others, but I guess it's just because it's a more guaranteed and assured route in comparison to the others. Because here's where it gets interesting. If you have dependents, all of them would have to pay the health surcharge as well as the 716, what's it called? 716 fee as well. So when you multiply that by maybe your wife, or God bless you, you have 3 children or even more, that's a lot of money. So yeah, that's as regards the fees. Then in terms of the decision timeline for getting the global talent visa, if you're applying from the UK, it takes 8 weeks. The interesting part, however, is that if you're applying from the UK, you can stay back till you get your decision. So this is maybe useful for people that are probably currently on like a student visa and are trying to cross to a global talent visa, for example, or perhaps you're probably being sponsored by an employer and you want to get off that to a new one. It's absolutely fine if that visa elapses and you are waiting a decision to stay back within the UK. But if it's a refuser, then most likely I'm afraid one would have to return back to their own country or find other alternatives. Outside the UK, if you're applying from Nigeria, it takes a minimum, at least 3 weeks for you to get a decision back from both your endorsement body as well as the Home Office that will be issuing the visa. So what can you do with the global talent visa? Literally everything, in my opinion. It's that flexible. You can be an employee, you can be self-employed. I personally have like few businesses registered here in the UK. If perhaps I'm on a different type of visa, I potentially might not be able to do that. I can employ people. I can work for other companies and organizations. The visa allows you up to 5 years to, be able to apply for like an ILR or British citizenship. And you don't necessarily have to tell like the Home Office if you're out of a job or you stopped. And then for this particular visa type, you can bring along or have dependents, partner, as well as children, so long as you're able to prove. And most importantly, you're allowed to travel abroad and return to the UK. I think there's like another caveat regarding that maybe at least make sure that you're able to prove that you're in the UK for 180 days in 6 months or maybe a year. Probably have to double check that, but please do check the government website to be double sure. The next slide, I will be focusing on the routes that I am very familiar with and is my personal experience. Let me again say that I am not an immigration expert. I'm not a coach. It's not side hustle. I'm just sharing out of my experience, right? And I just really wanted to touch on what the eligibility requirements are. To get an endorsement, it's usually based on proof and evidence. And those evidence would cut across different things aside from letters of recommendation. Those evidence need to be able to show that you've made an appearance, perform, have publication or exhibition. Remember that under the art and culture route, there are different practitioners that can qualify for it. As a fashion designer, as a dancer, as a visual arts artist, visual artists also fall under photographers. Um, as a writer or an author, which is under the literature route. There's also architects, as a filmmaker, as a TV. I don't know if the word to use is personality or like a TV producer. There are also practitioners that can actually apply through the art and culture route. And all of these practitioners fall under specific endorsement bodies. All of those endorsement bodies are on the government website. And I think I also mentioned it in the previous slide. And then your work can be a standalone work or could be a collaborative one. And here is what I mean. There's a saying in Yoruba, I don't know if there are Yorubas here, that's Igi kan ò lè dá gbó ṣe. And oftentimes when we talk about creative endeavors, sometimes there's always a need to collaborate or work with more than one person, right? And so this is like the UK government acknowledging the fact that creative efforts is usually a collaborative one. And so if a member of a group of people, a collective that actually achieves like a groundbreaking or an exceptional, work within the arts and culture sector, then you can also apply for this. I'll go on to share like my own personal story as time goes on, but beyond all of this, you then have to, when you're really sure that you've made appearances, you've got performance or any of these elements ticked, you then have to bear in mind that there are some specific documents that will help you make a strong case for an endorsement. And those documents are the following. First, 3 letters of recommendation. The second are 10 pieces of evidence showing that you're an exceptional talent or promise that cut across these areas. An international media recognition. Please, when you say international, don't be scared. It's not like nobody's saying that it has to be or in America or Bangladesh or Hong Kong or that kind of a thing. No. Because again, I feel that sometimes when we see some of these rules, we just shut our minds up and we're like, oh my God, am I that much of a big deal and all? But I'll break it down, hopefully, as we go on. And then there's also international appearances or exhibition for authors or writers or publication should be like the other option in the next under this particular bullet point. And then lastly, you also have to show like a copy of your CV. Now, the kind of CV or resume they are asking for is not necessarily the type you use to apply for a job. It's sort of like you trying to sell yourself and let people in on all of the creative endeavors or things that you've actually achieved. And I think for the technician or the digital technology route as well, you need to also, present your CV. And so in the CV, you are probably creating sections that cut across maybe some of the most innovative things you've done, perhaps in technology, or maybe it's an exhibition, some of the things that you've contributed to and all. It's tailored differently from what the kind of CV that you used to apply for, a job. Yeah, I can't look at the chat right now, but please share a thumbs up if everything I've shared so far is making sense. I'll go on to the next slide. Thanks, Ade. Okay, so here are the requirements. I took a few screenshots from the government website so that we are all seeing live and direct. I was hoping to transition to that particular page, but I don't want to take chances with technology. So in terms of the letter of recommendation, there are 3, like I rightly mentioned earlier. You need 1 from an individual who is well known or notable within an established art and culture organization. You need another letter from, maybe it necessarily does not have to be a Nigerian-based one, But I just decided to categorize it, so just to break it down. And then you need another letter from a UK-based established art and culture organization. And all of these letters definitely needs to be signed by, the last two needs to be signed by a senior member because it's someone from an organization. Only the first one is one that someone is writing in their capacity as an individual that they know you. And mind you, those people need to be well known within the sector. If it's in technology, it probably could be like a CEO or a founder of a tech product that is notable or is well known. Get them to write a letter for you and all of that. In terms of a letter, I would, from my experience, always advise people to be the one to craft the letter yourself because it's a long shot for you to just go to maybe a co-founder or a founder of a big or an established organization and say, oh, please, can you write a letter for me? Where do they even want to start from? Even if they know you personally, you need to do the bulk of the heavy lifting because you've taken time to look at what the requirements are and you are able to draft or craft a stronger narrative for them to follow, right? So for me, when I was applying, I did a lot of sit down with myself, right, and reflect on, okay, so these are the requirements. First, I need to, beyond just all this, what's the name, elements around, oh, it has to be 3 pages. These are like no-brainers at all because it's an official letter. It has to have like a letterhead and all of that. I knew that I wanted to show what is on the right side of my screen, which is first of all, it has to be signed by a senior member. The letter has to be written for the purpose of a global talent visa. It shouldn't be maybe like a reference letter that you submitted for your applications for masters. No, that would not fly. They would really, really flag that. First of all, in the letter while I was crafting it, I was very definitive about how that person knows me. There was a paragraph that was specifically dedicated to that. And then I took my own. Yeah. I literally had like bullet points or some of the things that I've achieved within the art and culture space, specifically within literature, that actually shows that I'm a potential leader or an exceptional leader. Then the third thing you also want to highlight in your letter is how you would benefit from living in the UK. So for example, for me, when I was in 2021 putting together my letter, part of what I mentioned was the fact that I had done a research and I realized that authors of African descent, for example, don't get as much visibility when it comes to, their works. And that I had research footnotes to back that up. I quoted people based on what I found on Google to actually elevate that particular point. Beyond that as well, I was quick to also include a paragraph that shows how I would contribute to a change or innovation within the cultural life in the UK. If it's for technology, how are you going to be contributing to the tech ecosystem within the UK? And then most importantly, they are not just going to give you the visa on a platter of gold. It's like you trying to make them feel like you're the best thing after jollof rice, or I don't know, maybe it's fish and chips here in the UK, right? And you're trying to tell them that, hey, these are the fantastic, incredible plans that I have if I get a visa to move to the UK. Part of the points that I was quick to highlight was the fact that at the back of my mind, I had like a children's book that I wanted to release. And I thought that if I move to the UK, I have a stronger opportunity to meet with literary agents that would definitely sign me up. And then beyond that as well, I talked about some of the initiatives that I was going to implement to help provide a thriving environment for authors of African descent to thrive and get visibility. And I'm actually doing that right now, post 2021, after I got the visa, because again, you want to keep your words, and whoever can tell, maybe there might be a chance where they are doing like an audit at the point when you want to apply for your ILR or your British citizenship. And so part of what this particular process inspired me to do was to start off like a book club that I run with the local library where I am currently. And so when if you are the one that takes time to write all of these things out, it's easier for you to put that forward to like the person who is recommending or signing the letter for you and to say, hey, this is what I can do. And then they read through it and They also ask you questions, see if there's anything they can add to fleshing the whole thing up, and then they append their signature, and that sorts it out. Hopefully, towards the end, I get to maybe like flash one of my letters that, was so good. There was one of the referees that was so gracious to even do up like the write-up of my letter. What she did was out of this world. And that was because for me, I think like the work I had done kind of like spoke for itself, and she had like front row experience to some of the things that I've managed to do. So and she also had that I don't want people to leave the session feeling that this is out of reach, no, because if you believe very strongly that you qualify for this, then you can actually begin to make concerted efforts to, curate your experience, begin to document your portfolio, begin to document all of the things, and be a bit more intentional about the narrative you're putting out there, what people are able to see about you. Because whether you like it or not, there's a lot of background work that, the endorsement bodies typically do to figure out and, ascertain if what you've said about yourself is true. Okay, so the next slide is regarding the 10 evidence pieces that you're putting forward. I'll be honest, when I saw this in 2021, as much as I felt like I had done a number of things, I kind of like disqualified myself, like international media recognition. God is my PR to start with, but the media recognition I've probably gotten over the years, mind you, the evidence that you're putting forward have to be in the last 5 years. So if you're, for example, applying in 2025, I want to believe 2024 is over already, then the evidence that you can put forward as proof for this to an endorsement, but they have to be between, I think, count 5 years backwards. That's like 2020 to 2025, right? So it can't be, if there are probably past glories or recognitions that you got beyond 2020, maybe from 2019, it would not be recognized or will be disqualified. And so for here, the media recognition bit kind of felt daunting. But by the time I sat down with it, I realized that if a channel's television in Nigeria had probably recognized or maybe featured you in something that you've done in the past, that is international in itself, because people, hey, tune into channels on DSTV, right? Or different part of the world. I know people in the UK watch, channels, for example, and that's like an international media recognition as well. And for many of the media houses, they have reach and outlets across just the local region, right? So for the media recognition bits and the international awards, international appearances and exhibition or publication, it has to be at least 2 out of these 3. So what I found out is that the lowest hanging fruit for most people is always the international media recognition and international appearances or exhibition. The international awards bit can be quite daunting because, I mean, some people probably have nominations or have not even won awards for some of their creative endeavors in the first place. So if you have just media recognition and appearance or publication, that in itself can fly. So you then divide the 10 evidence across the 2 segments, or if you have all 3, it can be maybe 4 media recognition. I did 4 media recognition, 2 awards, and then 4 international appearance and publication. I think all of the stuff on the screen are quite readable. I don't just want to read them out verbatim. I just want to share examples from my experience. Under media recognition, what I worked with was like created a spreadsheet and then began to think back at some of the places that I had spoken at and see, okay, I think this falls under media recognition. And I still get proof maybe online when I search about this. There were some interviews that I had granted before then that were not relevant because, again, evidence you're putting forward have to be in the last 5 years. So what you do basically is to open a Word document, take a screenshot. If it's maybe like an interview on Channels Television, for example, take a screenshot of the YouTube, what's the name, thumbnail or something, put that or copy and paste it on a Word document. This is me trying to be as explicit as possible. And then copy and paste the link in the Word document as well. You can include maybe like a short paragraph providing a description of what that thing is all about. However, mind you, the interview isn't not going to be about you. It is about your work. You're talking about what creative endeavor or thing that you've done. If you're a fashion designer, it might be maybe you had the privilege of having your some models wear your outfits for a fashion show, and then maybe Arise Television, for example, covered it, take a screenshot of it, and you can even go as far as reaching out to the organizers of some of those events to write a letter to back that up for you, because you don't want to take chances. Everything has to be detailed and, evidence-based. Um, in terms of international awards, if it's the credibility or amount of evidence that you put forward that then decide whether you're going to be considered for exceptional talents, which is the leader one. Remember, for the leader one, the route to the pathway to ILR is shorter. It's just 3 years, which is fantastic, right? However, for exceptional promise, it takes 5 years, depending on the amount of evidence you're able to put forward. Some people, if you are able to only have nominations that are credible, then I would always suggest that you apply for, exceptional promise, because at least it's the lower hanging fruits. And, well, yeah, if you are very confident and you feel like, yeah, I think I have stronger evidence, by all means, apply for exceptional leader. And then in terms of international appearances and exhibition or publication, this is the part that gets very tricky. So for me, then, while I've done Roving Heights, I've done a number of other things within the art space, provided opportunities for writers, creatives to thrive within the literary ecosystem in Nigeria. I was not a published author. I've not written a book. But I needed to show my artistic prowess too. I studied English. I do a bit of writing on the side, but it's not something that I do like seriously, or that I now say, well, I have my book on the shelf or anything. But as God would have it, um, 2 years preceding 2021, in the middle of the pandemic, there were two people that reached out to me and wanted me to be a contributing author to an anthology. An anthology is like a collection of short stories or essay, or it can also be poetry, right? And when they reached out, I was like, it's not like I've been writing for literary magazines or anything, but I just took it up as a challenge that, oh, well. And those works were actually nonfiction, so it was kind of like easier for me to pull them off. And so those were the books that I then make reference to, because those books eventually got published. They were available on international platform, on Amazon, for example. I believe that Amazon is available across 13 countries in the world. And so that's like an international appearance or evidence. So sometimes when you see the line or the word, it just sounds like, oh my God, it's out of reach. But when you dig deeper, it is Amazon. That's the international appearance that you need, or publication if you're an author. I know people who have actually taken time to create all of these things within a space of 6 months, even when they don't know Jack or haven't necessarily done anything in that space. Some of the things or mechanics that I know people have successfully used, especially when they want to show evidence for international appearance or exhibition or publication, is to become a children book author. And I definitely recommend this. It's very doable, because it's like using one stone to kill two birds. You're applying for a visa, right? And you're also impacting the life of, a younger generation. But please do it with the most utmost and, altruistic intentions. And here's what I mean. To write a children's book, for example, you just need maybe like 1,500 words, and you can work closely in collaboration with a book illustrator who helps you bring to life some of the things that you've written. Get that published, and have it up on a platform like Amazon. Roving Nights will be available to help you distribute in Nigeria. And you can even have it available on multiple distribution platforms. And many of these things are easily done on when you watch a few YouTube videos, or you can also reach out to people who are experts in this to help you. And yeah, you already ticked the box for, international appearance or exhibition there. And for people who are not into writing or authors, the other option could be maybe if you're into fashion designing, for example, or you're a photographer. See if you have friends that are photographers like that. do a collaboration with them if you're still based in Nigeria, or even in the UK. See if we can put together maybe like an exhibition, get a venue, get some media houses to cover it for you. A Bella Nigeria, pay a journalist to show up and report them for you. All I'm just trying to say is that there's a way you can create some of these things if you're intentional and you're very keen over the space of like 6 to 12 months. And you also need to make sure that it's as organic, it looks as organic and as most convincing as possible. I know someone who went on to write a children's book was trying to put together evidence as a combined artist, both as a visual artist, the photographer, as well as a children's book author. And what that person did basically was to write the children's book and then open an Instagram account and started, what will I call it now? Should I say nature photography? You know, people that are just always snapping moons and stars or sunset and everything, and edited it beautifully, created that over like 3, 6 months, had a fantastic name for it, was getting some level of engagement, got an interview where he was talking about what drives or inspired his love for, nature photography and all of that. And evidence is available, media recognition, you tick that and all of that, right? Please let me know if this is making sense or you're getting exciting ideas on how to really go about this. All right, I'll move on to I think this should be like the penultimate slide for me. I had questions at the back of my mind whether this was like being sharing too much. When I applied, it was a testimony on its own. I believe most people here are people of faith. And when I left Nigeria for the UK, I had plans to go back home because it's almost like I had a lot going for me in Nigeria. And I was asking God around, okay, so what should I do? Should I stay back or should I go home and all? And so, in of itself, getting this particular visa was just, I believe, one of the biggest ways God went on to show me that there was a purpose or, a big thing that He really wanted me to achieve here in the UK. I got my global talent visa on the exact day my student visa was expiring in 2021. And the process, like I mentioned earlier, would typically take 8 weeks, but it just felt like God collapsed time for me, literally. It took like 2 weeks. I had the opportunity of actually sending emails and explaining the peculiarity of my situation to them that, hey guys, I want to know if I will be able to, the process can be expedited for me, right? And beyond that as well, I was also like considering the option of maybe a PSW if that wasn't working, or really going back home if that's as the case may be. And I got a response because one of the beautiful things about the UK system in comparison to other countries is like there are humans behind the computer and their processes, and you would always, if you ask, you would always get answers, especially if there are, contact details available for you. So this was what the response looked like on that fateful day in December or January, I can't remember, in 2021 when I got the email. So it says that my application for endorsement through the Heart Council England had been approved, and they will be putting forward a recommendation to the Home Office to then approve my visa. And so as soon as I got this first, what's the name, email, I was moved on to stage 2. And for that process, I needed to go to the Home Office to do my data capturing. And my BRP was literally arrived in my post on the exact day my student visa was expiring. So now to the right side of the screen, what I did when I was starting off this process was to scheme and be detailed. I'm the queen of Excel spreadsheets. And so I was very practical about the approach, sat down on the government website. Basically, what I did was just to search Global Talent Visa on government websites. The process can be self-done. You can do it yourself, but sometimes some people have to rely on coaches. So if you're not the person that is really, really keen or pay attention to details, you can get, I think there are people who are immigration coaches or experts that support for a fee. And so I read through the lines and the guidelines and broke that down into the different requirements. And then I begin to ask myself, okay, so who do I have? I've written here that, okay, I was quick to mention, to had that, an international based organization. I highlighted, narrative landscape. They are one of the biggest publishers that are notable. Everybody knows Chimamanda, and I had worked with them in the past, and like here, I'll reach out to them to write a letter of recommendation for me. An eminent individual with recognized expertise plus CV. There were authors that I had supported in the past, and many of them were eager, like they were happy to, recommend me. And then for the UK-based cultural organization, that part was tricky because as of then, I hadn't really dipped in my foot into, the literary space here in the UK. But thankfully, I had a friend who had a company that was really focused on, supporting poets and everything. But what I would say is that if you look closely, you would find, and with God's help and the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, to just reach out and ask the right questions. Even when you go on LinkedIn, I know some people that will be reluctant and would say stuff like, "Oh, I'm not going to recommend someone that I don't know in a personal capacity." But you'd be shocked how God would, command or make the heart of many to be restless for the sake of his children, just to, yield and use them for our own good. So yeah, there are people out there who are kind of hearted, and you'd be shocked that they will be willing to like support. And so for the evidence, I then began to list out some of the recognitions that I've gotten in the past, try to categorize them across different areas. This was not the final stuff I eventually put forward, but there were some of them that I felt like of itself, it wasn't strong enough and I needed letters to back them up. And so I was quick to reach out to organizers, because one of the things that I found out later on that made people get refusal was the fact that, they probably just took Instagram screenshot of a flyer. How is a flyer alone proving that you are exceptional? No, you probably need a stronger case. And the interesting thing about white people or English people is that they like proof. And so long as you can articulate that and make a strong case for it, and with God on your side, it will definitely happen. Yeah, here's my final slide, right? I'm just sharing some relevant resources that I think people can make reference to. I've talked largely around the art and culture route, which is the one I benefited from. But for people who feel they are practitioners within, or they have more talent across technology, digital technology, these are like some YouTube videos that you can watch that I've seen people that have interacted with personally, and they've gotten high success rates from people who have merely watched these videos and combine that with the guidelines that they saw on the government website. And then the routes that most people actually hardly consider is like the academic or research routes. I found a video by Dr. Yemisi Adedeji on YouTube, and this proved very, very useful. So if you're someone who is doing like a PhD currently, or you've got like a research project, this is also something you can easily, watch. If your higher institution, maybe the university that you're working with, or a professor that you're supporting with like a research process, is willing to write a letter for you, then there's a Royal Society for Science. There's so many for engineering and all of that that are endorsement bodies that then kind of like approve or verify all the evidence you're putting forward to say, hey, this person is exceptional, or is promising. And then you can go on to stage 2, which is then applying for the visa itself. So yeah, this is where I'm going to stop for now. And I just really wanted to say thank you for listening. I've got a few questions, and I'm really keen to like answer questions and be able to delve into different areas of this. So I'm pausing. I will stop sharing for now. So thank you for the audience, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me allow people to be able to unmute themselves now. Thank you so much for this. It was so, so, so insightful. This is Q&A, guys. If we have any questions, please do let us know. I could relate with some of the things you shared. Sometimes we do some things and we think they are not very important. Like maybe so what is coming to my head might not be relevant, but I'm just thinking maybe you have like a foundation, an NGO, you've been able to raise funds, you've had impact. Major challenges, we don't document those things. And because we don't document them, we don't see them as being useful for one or two things that we currently do. I'll keep quiet now and allow Sheson to ask his question. Sheson, please go for it.
Hello, hi. Thank you, Toby, for the presentation. It was quite a lot, but it was good. Okay, so the question that I have, because you're very good at writing, like you said. Personally, for me, I have a problem writing. So in the case of now documenting everything and sitting down to say, hey, I want to write on behalf of the manager that I've worked with in the past, can ChatGPT be a very good help with that? And secondly, did you also have anyone to proofread your documentation, your documents? And if you had someone, do you have any recommendation for people like us who might be interested in this pathway if we decide to do that ourselves and we need someone to help us look at our work? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shefson. That's like a very useful question. In terms of the use of AI, artificial intelligence, all for, leveraging technology to be able to achieve or expedite processes. But there's also the place of you not just relying 100% on it because it's machine learning, right? And nothing trumps the place of, personal storytelling and all of that. So if you struggle with writing, then I would definitely suggest maybe working closely with someone who's like a content writer or their CV companies that are focused on helping people revamp their CV, write personal statements and all of that. What you basically need to do is to sit down with someone and tell your own story. They jot down key points and then put that together into a very strong and compelling narrative for you. And in terms of proofreading, absolutely, it's always useful to have like a second pair of eye, look at your work. And so I highly recommend you, working with somebody else to look at it, to review. For me, I was privileged to, like I mentioned, I wouldn't have known about this because oftentimes, I don't know if it's a Nigerian thing or everybody thing that, people like to keep stuff a lot. Like you only want to prosper alone, which is not right, right? So I was privileged to have someone who had benefited from this and was like, hey, I think you qualified for this. And he literally held me by the hands and was always following up with me and all of that. And so I'm happy to pay it forward too. I've done that for a couple of people over the years. And so I'm happy to see if there's anything I can do to support. But yeah, I work with companies that write CV, chat GPT. Maybe it might provide guidance in terms of the flow, okay, how to, you know, come across in terms of your thought process. But chat GPT will not come into your mind to help you dig out, oh, this is what you've done. You see what I mean? I hope that answers your question.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cesar. And I would say that for this kind of application, personally, I would say avoid ChatGPT. Just get someone to help you write it. Let it be as natural as possible. Because trust me, they would check. And they have all, whatever you write on ChatGPT or any AI for that matter, they can be traced and they can actually find out if it was written by human or machine learning. Oladimiji, please go for your question.
All right, thank you very much. Hi, Toby. Thank you for that expose. I'm just going to go to the requirements about the award recognition and the likes. So let's say the only nomination and award that you've had, as well as your publication, has been tied to the work you did with your organization, which, let's say, a global organization, for example. You've had to be the face of the brand, championing their cause, put into market entry, and it's been like 2, 3 years. Will this kind of thing pass for first your publications and second for award recognition?
Yes, it will. That's a good question, Dimeji, and it would absolutely pass. I think that one of the things, like I mentioned earlier, that would help you make that even more solid or credible is to get like a letter backing up your own contribution to getting those awards. So, for example, there was a project that I was a part of. I think it was Discover Nigeria. That particular book was a collection of photos of monuments and historic places across Nigeria. And the book or the project went on to win the Guinness Book of Records, something, and I wanted to make reference to it in my application. So what I went on to do is to reach out to the curator. The person who was like the lead for that project to, hey, I'm trying to do this. This is a letter. Can you help me put together like a letter to support what I've done? It was an initial struggle because they didn't understand or know how to weave the narrative to support it. But I went on to draft it and then have them take a look, cross-check, or maybe you were saying too much here and all of that, just to make sure that you're not going beyond boundary and all of that. So if your organization, there's a senior person in that organization that you've been representing that is very particular about and can actually speak to your contribution within the organization, then by all means, have them write a letter to back up what you are submitting as your evidence. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Last question. I think about contribution. So let's say, what's the latest your contribution to your space can be? Let's say you've always had something in the shelf, you just not been able to make out time to bring it to life, like a full-blown plan or something to contribute. For example, because I'm not in the writing space, I'm more in digital economy and growth, and you are in time to actually launch it, say Q1, and you're sure about the result because you have every plan, you've done your testing and all. Will it be in time, or does it come off as, oh, you actually did launch this because you wanted to apply for this? But then again, remember, you're going to get results because you're putting in resources, you're using the network you've built over time to deliver on the value you intend to. Will it strengthen your application?
Well, it might be useful to make reference to it, but I would say to be able to show workings immediately and not be so futuristic in terms of the evidence that you are putting forward. So even if it means you also want to be as realistic as possible too, because these are human beings, they go and do their due diligence, right? And if it's looking too good to be true, there's also a place of when you launch something, you give it time to rest and to, take a life of its own, if that makes sense, right? So if, for example, it's a product and maybe you're launching like the beta version, give it another 3 months and then be able to, even though you know that, in another 1 year, you're hoping to get maybe like 10,000 users, within the 3 months that you've launched the beta version, you can make reference to, we've been able to acquire this, show evidence of what you've been able to do immediately before you then begin to make projection. Because at the end of the day, you don't want it to look as if you are, speculating, right? You need to show what is tangibly on ground because, again, you just want to hear on the safe side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, those were 2 good questions, Oladimeji. And it also passes for the US employment-based visas as well. Just to sneak that in, we're having that next week, Saturday. We're talking about US as well, where you can actually self-sponsor yourself. And then in the new year, we'll be looking at Canada. Great questions. I think I see Bolaji's hand. Bolaji, please go for it.
Hi, good evening. Thanks,
Good
Toby. Sorry, I joined this late. My name is Bolaji. So just right on the last question, how long ago would any of this evidence matter? For a case in point, if you have so many of these things, like 15 years ago, thereabout, oh, really, 5 years? Okay, aligned to that. So it has to be more recent, right?
Yeah, it has to be recent.
Okay. So and another thing that I wanted to check. So even if you have not published a book, but yes, you have it. Is it okay to publish and probably publish in 2025 early 2025? Would that pass? And you put in your application almost immediately. Would that pass?
I would definitely advise to let it rest or mature for a bit, so it doesn't look as if it's like curated or like a gimmick. Like
Okay.
there's so many people that are kind of like running this as a racket in this age and time. So
Right.
realistically speaking, if for example you release a book, maybe giving it a space of 2-3 months to see if it's getting traction, for example, would be more credible, would make your application a bit more solid and credible. Yeah, I know it might be like a time thing, but just it's always better to just do the right thing and just see how, it pans out from there. I know someone who actually applied and it went digging. They refused the visa on the application, the endorsement on the basis that, it looked as if he had literally just released the book and then he's putting out an application in like the space of 2, 3 months. Even some of the bestsellers that we have, it takes an average of a month or two for you to be able to say, oh, this is a bestseller or not. So on the average, just give it like 3 months to mature. That makes sense.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I just also want to say that you want to make it look as real as possible. You don't want to, and that's why it's always good to plan. So if you know that, okay, 2026, I want to apply for this, use the whole of 2025 to plan, get all the necessary things early, Q1, Q2, 25, and begin to, curate those. Like you said, Tobi had said, use 6 to 12 months to do that, so that by the time you put forward your application, you are not rejected. And I also want to mention that this is not, like she said as well, is not only for art and culture, because I have a colleague who is a salesperson, but he worked with InterSwitch and then he applied for a global talent visa.
Yeah.
All you need to do is to be able to show that you're good at what you do. So especially, for instance, if you've grown to the level of a director in your organization and you've been able to contribute strategically, there's been growth, there's been revenue growth, and you have evidences to back all of that up, it's a good thing for you to begin to curate those and be ready for the opportunities when they come. Do we have further questions? Any questions? Okay, I do not see any questions. I want to say a big thank you to you, Tobi. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this and giving us all the details. I think this is just a template for everyone, whether you're in the art or art and culture or not. It's a template that you need to begin to look into if you really want to self-sponsor. Because even if you go through the student route, I was in the UK, I was on student visa. It's not something you want to do, because after student visa, there's that pressure to look for a company to sponsor you. And when they sponsor you, you're afraid you don't want to lose your job, because once you lose your job, you need someone else to sponsor you. It's very difficult. But when you self-sponsor, it comes with peace of mind. You can do business, you can employ people, you can also be an employer, you can do both. You have some flexibility. So I just pray that whatever we decide to do, God will help us all. Thank you so much, Tobi. Can we just appreciate Tobi in the chat, or can we unmute ourselves and just, say one word? How do we feel about this session? How was it in one word? Was it impactful? Did we learn from it? Thank you so much, Tobi. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ade. Thank you for putting this together.
Thank you. So like I said, oh, sorry. You were saying?
Yeah, I said it was a pleasure sharing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So like I said, next week we'll be talking about US. I want to bring up the flyer for US. I know we have a lot of people. So I'm not sure if we can see it properly, but let me just, it's a bit small here on my hand. So we have Dr. Koyemi Babajide will be talking to us next week about US visa programs, how you can self-sponsor for US as well. And then in the new year, we'll be looking at Canada. Yeah. I just want to put this out there. And Tobi, I want to put you on the spot. You've done so many businesses, and we're trying to help people move from survival to thriving. So we're going to bring you back on a panel on how you started your businesses, just to help us. And we hope that you won't refuse us. All right. Before we go, please, I want to take a poll. It's going to take a minute just to help us prepare better. I've launched the poll. Let us know how you felt about this webinar. Poll is up. Please help us fill the poll. Before you leave, please don't leave without telling us how you felt about the webinar. Anybody filling the poll? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone that have filled. We really do appreciate it. And yeah, thank you. See you next week, Saturday, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Tobi. We love you. God bless you. Bye, everyone.